So this is an instructional video for how to make the waterfall jacket. There's 3 pattern pieces here, so if we have a little look at them, you have your jacket centre back, which is a cut one of on fold. So you're all used to doing that now. You place this particular edge where it says cut on fold on your folded piece of fabric and cut around it to open out into one back panel. You've got your front panel, which is a cut 2 of, 1 on reverse, so you would place one this way, cut it, and then flip it over and cut one that way, and then that gives you 2 front panels. And then you've got your sleeve pattern, which is a cut 1 of, 1 on reverse, so again just like you did with the front panels, pop one on that way, cut it, and then reverse it and cut it that way. So you should have a total of 2 sleeves. So that's 1 back panel, 2 front panels, 2 sleeves. So when you cut your back panel, make sure that you folded your fabric over, and the part of the pattern piece that says cut on fold, that nice sharp straight edge there, do make sure that you're placing that on the fold and then cutting around just the bottom, the sides and the top. Okay, so once your pattern is all cut, you'll have 2 sides, 1 back. So what you need to do next is place the back panel out on the table in front of you, and then pin your 2 front panels to the back panel along the sides and the shoulders, and it's these points where you're about to sew. So you should have now sewn your front panels to your back panel by stitching across the 2 sides and the 2 shoulder points. All we've used is just a nice simple straight stitch. On the machines we have here at college, the Brother LX17s, it was just a stitch length of 3 and a stitch selection of 3. So next we're going to pin and sew the sleeves. Before you do that, because they are slightly different at the top, make sure that you have them facing the right way opposite each other. So that bigger curve should be positioned both at the top, and that smaller curve should be positioned at the bottom. Once you've done that, all you're doing then is folding the sleeve down, and you are going to be pinning and sewing along the straight edge. So all you're doing is pinning and sewing down the straight edge of each sleeve. Do make sure that you are pinning and sewing in the right on the right side. The reason we folded them down that way, as you can see, you have one side that's slightly different to the other. Now these need to be on opposite sides. This larger section here actually sits on the back to give you extra room to move. Once you've sewn your sleeves, turn them the correct way around so that the seam is on the inside, and then what we need to do is insert them into the actual jacket. So leave the jacket the wrong way round, but make sure that your sleeves are the right way round. And then looking at the top of these, so the bit with the bigger curve, that needs to go to the back. So take them and insert them into your jacket, making sure that they go to the right arm. So the sleeve that we're working with today is actually a puff sleeve, so it's slightly more rounded on the top than the previous sleeves that you'll have worked with on the t-shirts. What you need to do to insert this is make sure that your seams are together and pin from that point first. Then you're pinning round, okay, and when you get towards the top, this is where you'll actually start to have a bit of a bag there. It's almost like you've got too much fabric. So when you get to that point, all you need to do is to find the actual top, the middle of the top of the sleeve, and pin that to the top seam where your shoulder is. And then with all the rest of the bag, it's a case of folding it in, almost giving it a little bit of a pleat, like that, and that will actually create a bit of a gather that will give it the puff sleeve. When you come to sew your sleeve on the sewing machine, make sure that you take this extra part off because that leaves you just with this thinner part of the sewing machine, and you can actually place your sleeve over that and sew. So all you're doing is just whizzing round it, rolling it round as you go. Make sure that you do it slowly as to not get anything trapped, and once you've done that, you're repeating the exact same process with the other sleeve. So once you've done your sleeves, turn it the right way around, and you can see the beginnings of your waterfall jacket taking shape. You can see where we actually pleated on the sleeves that it has given you that slight little puff there. Okay, so what you need to do now is repeat this entire process that we've just done with your lining. So use your pattern pieces to cut your lining with, and you are doing exactly what we've just done. Repeat the steps. So you should have repeated all of those steps that you did on the outside of your jacket and created the exact same thing but with your lining. So essentially at this moment you should have what looks like two jackets, and then we pin those together and sew them together to create one. So to put the outer jacket and the lining together, place them together, right sides together, and then we're going to be pinning around one of the front edges all the way around the top and back of the neckline, and then back down the other front panel, leaving the bottom open. Your sleeves just need to be floating around in the middle at the moment, so don't worry too much about those. But when you come to pin it together, find the top two seams first of all that were created from your shoulders and pin at those points first. Pin then in the centre and pin out along the back of the neckline and down the front of that panel, and then back to the middle and pin out and down, and that's where you're sewing. So once you've sewn all around there, turn your jacket back the right way round. Now at this point it will look like you've got 4 sleeves. However, on your lining, all you need to do is just turn the sleeves back inside out and push them through the outer sleeves. So once you've turned the inside sleeves back the wrong way round, it's just a case of pushing them back to sit inside the outer sleeves. Our next stage is to do the hem on the bottom of the jacket, and to do this we need to turn the edges into each other. So work from the inside, so have your lining facing you, and what you're doing is on the outside of your fabric turning it in, but then you want to turn the lining in as well to meet it at that point. So your lining should sit just above your outer fabric. So once you've turned both of those in together and pinned along it, it should look a little bit like this. So you've got a little bit of a lip coming from the outside of your fabric, and your lining should sit just inside. So once you've done that and it's pinned in place, all you're doing is just top stitching and trying to get as close to this end as possible. So if you've sewn that correctly, you should have a really nice neat stitch along the bottom edge of your jacket, and you can see that that stitch is as close to that lining edge as possible, and you can see the lip there coming from the outer side. So for the sleeves, you're repeating this process, turning the outer into the lining, and the lining should have that little lip over it. So you should have now repeated that process to both of your sleeves, just turning the outer fabric and the lining in together, pinning it, and again you just want that slight lip, okay? And you're now going to be sewing again just as close to this lining edge as possible. So once you've sewn those sleeves together, now really we want to concentrate on making all of this nice outer edge nice and crisp. So just get it on the ironing board and press it all out to make the outer edge and around the back of the neckline nice and crisp. So you should have ironed all of this out, and that edge should be nice and crisp. Now to get the waterfall effect, all we're doing is folding this back. So you want to fold it so you get a bit of a point there. You want to leave about that much of the straight. So you're folding it back, iron that into place, fold it again, iron that into place, and then fold that last bit back and iron that into place, and that creates your waterfall. So ironing out your front panels gives it this lovely waterfall effect. Try and get it as equal as you can on both sides, and what should happen, if you've got a lovely different coloured piece of fabric as your lining, then you should be able to see that lining here and here, and so you get that lovely different effect on your front. And there is your lovely finished waterfall jacket. I've turned the sleeves up on mine just to give it a little bit more of a contemporary look. If you do that, also you'll get that lovely lining along your cuffs as well as on your waterfall panels if you've got a different colour in your lining. So that can actually be quite a nice touch if you decide to do that.